Hello, a very good evening to you. Welcome to a new week on Calendar.
Hello, thank you for joining us, and here are tonight's main stories.
Campaigners fight to save services at Goole Hospital as the future of inpatient facilities is thrown into doubt.
Hospital bosses insist no decisions have been taken, but say they are looking at potential options for the future of this site.
10 years since Damien Vernon went missing from Wakefield, his daughter seeks answers as police release new footage.
If you know anything, just please find it in your heart to speak out, because we need to know as a family, and he deserves to be able to be resting in peace or to be able to come home to his family.
From South Korea to North Derbyshire, a good result for the footy fan who travelled over 5,000 miles to watch Chesterfield. Plus, we'll have a roundup of the rest of the weekend's sport.
And wrestling with faith, the church in Shipley, which is mixing sermons and spandex. First tonight to the fight to save services at Goole and District Hospital as the future of the site's inpatient facilities has been thrown into doubt.
Hospital bosses have confirmed they're looking at what they call future potential options and opportunities for the hospital. It's left staff, patients and residents in Goole and the surrounding area with huge concerns about what that might mean.
Well, Sally Simpson is outside the hospital for us. Sally, what's been the reaction to this?
Well, there's a great strength of feeling in favour of keeping hospital services here around the clock. 5,000 signatures have been added to a petition in just 24 hours. That now stands at nearly 6,000. And earlier today, there was a significant gathering in the town centre to make those feelings known. This is all prompted by a meeting held between some staff and hospital bosses in which they were told the site is running at a £4 million a year loss and the trust has to do the most for the most with the public purse.
And how can that be achieved then?
Well, staff claim they've been told that one option is to close half the hospital and rent it out, with jobs transferred from this site to Scunthorpe Hospital. They say they've been told a population of 100,000 is needed to sustain a community hospital like this one, and that Goole only has 20,000. But campaigners argue that Goole is a growing economy with a growing population and needs more infrastructure rather than less, and they say they'll fight to keep services here.
It's become very clear that we're not going to go down without a fight. We are putting a committee together and we will fight this, because this is going to be a massive loss to the people of Goole and surrounding areas. Goole is growing. We need more infrastructure, not less.
So, Sally, what's the trust had to say about it?
Well, no one from Northern Lincolnshire and Goole NHS Foundation Trust wanted to speak to us on camera this evening, but they did tell us in a statement that there is a lot of disinformation circulating about Goole and District Hospital, which is causing unnecessary anxiety to the local population and our staff. We've started work to look at the future potential options and opportunities for the hospital, and no decisions have been taken on its future. They also say there's a lot of work we have to do with our staff, patients and partners to understand what we might do, and we'll be meeting with them to discuss potential options and their ideas in the coming months. So there's much still unclear for now, but many of those affected say they would welcome the opportunity to have their ideas heard and to hear more about just what the Trust is proposing and to tell the Trust exactly what they think of those proposals.
Sally Simpson, thank you very much at Goole Hospital.
Next to the decade-long agony of a woman whose father went to the bank and never returned. Courtney Vernon was a child when 32-year-old Damien went missing from Wakefield.
Since then, her mother has died and she's had her own children. And throughout all that, she's held out the hope that one day Damien, who'd now be 42, would come home. Helen Steele reports.
These are the last images of Damien Vernon. In a bank in Bridlington, he's smiling and interacting with customers. But this was the last official sighting, and this was 10 years ago.
If you know anything, just please find it in your heart to speak out, because we need to know as a family, and he deserves to be able to be resting in peace or to be able to come home to his family.
His daughter Courtney had barely started secondary school when Damien disappeared. At the time, she made a desperate plea for his return.
We want your dad with your grandma, don't we? So if anybody knows anything.
Someone has to know something.
We just want him home.
So the first time I met you, you were 13. You're 23 now. I mean, that must have affected your childhood a lot.
It's literally took it completely because, I mean, every good memory that I had of my dad from before that when I was younger, because we was really close, is now overshadowed kind of thing by now missing him and, you know, having this agony that we've all had to go through for 10 years.
Damien had enjoyed time with his family before he went missing. Daddy. His youngest daughter Veda was just 1. He did suffer from mental health issues, but his family says his disappearance that day was out of character. He told them he was driving from Bridlington, where he was picked up on CCTV, to collect a car in Sheffield. Police believe he drove via Howden, but his car was found in Wakefield near the River Calder, where a witness saw him walking up an alleyway. Despite river searches and multiple appeals, the trail went cold. Humberside Police says the investigation is still open and long-term missing cases can have a good outcome.
People have been found, but it comes down to the circumstances. So firstly, Damien, he can pick up the phone, he can talk to us, he can reach out to us by all the social media channels, and we will try and support him. And if anybody else knows what happened on that day, then they can come forward anonymously.
Damien has never met his grandchildren.
So you've obviously got 2 children of your own now. What do you think he would have been like with them?
He just loved everyone and everything, and he'd be the most boss granddad. Like, my kids would absolutely adore him. My eldest, he's actually started asking about my parents, because I actually lost my mum in 2021. She actually passed away as well. So my eldest now asks me, well, where are your parents, mummy? And that's getting harder and harder to explain because I can't actually tell him, do you know where my dad actually is?
Courtney hopes more than anything that this appeal, a decade on, will help provide her with the answer. Helen Steele, ITV News.
Yes, we hope the families do get the answers that they're looking for there. Now then, you're watching Monday night's calendar, and still to come.
I'll have all the weekend sport, including this dramatic crash involving Leeds' Olympic cycling champion, Katie Marchant.
And there's some much needed drier weather ahead this week, with perhaps a few fog patches to contend with. I'll have the full weather forecast later on in the programme.
A woman who was found with a Stanley knife and is said to have described wanting to kill people in a bloodbath escaped from a psychiatric ward several times in the months before she allegedly stabbed a man to death in Sheffield, an inquest has heard. Roger Leadbeater was stabbed in a park in the Westfield area of the city in August last year. 32-year-old Emma Borrowy was charged with murder but died in prison before standing trial. She had been admitted to a psychiatric ward in Bolton after stealing and killing 2 goats from a farm and reporting hearing whispering voices. The inquest into Mr Leadbeater's death is due to last all week.
A major clean-up has begun in North Yorkshire after more than 25 homes were flooded during Storm Dara. Properties were left damaged and without power after heavy rain and 50 miles/hour winds struck on the weekend. Many residents in the worst affected area of Kirby Moorside were moved to local shelters for their safety. North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service were deployed with special gear and water pumps to help with the recovery. Well, next this evening, the eyes of the world are on Syria after the rebel offensive overthrew the government and ended the 50-year iron rule of the Assad family.
Watching events particularly closely was Dr Riyad Al-Sous, a Syrian academic who fled the country in 2013 and now lives in West Yorkshire.
He's one of millions who were forced to leave due to the brutal civil war. Since he settled in Marsden near Huddersfield, he's launched the Buzz project, which helps fellow refugees find a sense of purpose through beekeeping.
We caught up with Dr Al-Sous a little earlier and started by asking him about how he feels about what's happened over the last few days.
Really, we was very excited to hear good news. During 1 week or 10 days, we found that dramatic releasing the cities, city by city. But when we hear about the opposite forces now arrived and very near to Damascus. Really, that night it was mixture between hope and stress and exciting.
You still have family and friends in Syria. What kind of impact is this having on them right now?
All of them, my family, my friends, my sisters, brothers, all of them, they are very happy and full of hope now to the new future, with new regime. But we are praying to get everything all right in future and everything done in positive and good progressing.
We know that, of course, you've had to settle in West Yorkshire and you've made West Yorkshire your home. Could you ever see a day when you go back to Syria?
Really, if I want to go to Syria, I will go as a visitor, because already we are settled now and adapted and integrated with new culture, new home. In this age, and our family and our children here and our business, so it is difficult now to change again and go again to our homeland. So we'll go just for visit, and we can give any help to our family if we can.
So are you hopeful for the future?
We hope, all of us, we're hoping for the future and to be great. I'm sure the new regime will be better than old regime. As I said to my friends, the main thing we need to settle in any country to have justice. There is a great saying of Imam Ali when he said, "The place you have justice, it is your land. You should settle in it." So we here 12 years now in justice society and peaceful life, and we hope to our friends and family and all people in Syria and other countries to have great justice. Then they will have great peaceful. So no peace without justice. That's we are wishing to getting in future.
OK, well, we wish for that too. Dr. Riyad Al-Zeus, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you again.
And there's more on the situation in Syria on the ITV Evening News, which continues at 6:30 with Mary Nightingale.
Coming up on the Evening News, what does a free Syria mean for the country, its refugees and the rest of the world? We're in the capital city of Damascus with all the latest. Rapper Jay-Z hits back at allegations he raped a 13-year-old, labelling it a blackmail attempt. And the nominees for next year's Golden Globes have been revealed. Who leads the way and who missed out? Would you join me for those stories and more at 6:30?
Thank you, Mary. Well, we've reached that time now where we've got a bit of sport, and it's a Yorkshire 1-2 in the Championship.
Xero Accounting Software sponsors ITV Regional Sports Report.
And Chris is with us, and it's Sheffield United and Leeds battling it out at the top.
You know what, Ian? I've got a little bit of deja vu from 6 years ago here. Yeah, back then in the 2018-19 season, it was Sheffield United who pipped Leeds to promotion, and they currently lead the way after yesterday's 2-2 draw at West Brom, which manager Chris Wilder called the best result of their season so far. It could have been even better as well, had it not been for this unfortunate deflection which looped in for West Brom's equaliser. Now, whether he's playing mind games or not here, and despite being a point ahead of them in the league, Wilder also said Leeds were miles ahead of the Blades at present. The Whites' 2-0 win over Derby, moving them second in the Championship table. Sheffield Wednesday are up to 9th after a 1-1 draw with Preston, although Owls boss Danny Röhl admitted his side deserved nothing from the game. It's 4 wins in a row and 9 unbeaten now for Huddersfield, who are 4th in League One after a 2-1 victory at Mansfield, who've now lost 5 straight league games. Barnsley went ahead at home to Birmingham, but they ended up losing 2-1. And in League Two, George Broadbent scored this beauty as Doncaster twice came from behind to draw at home to Cheltenham. Alex Patterson went from hero to zero in the space of 2 minutes for Bradford after scoring the equalising goal at Crewe and then being sent off. Harrogate lost 3-0 at home to Wimbledon, but Chesterfield won 3-0 against Tranmere. Ryan Colclough with the pick of the goals. Now, if you were watching on Friday, you'll have seen that Chesterfield had a very special guest at their game on Saturday. 22-year-old Yang Shi-jun, who travelled over 5,000 miles from South Korea with his brother to watch the Spyrites play, was presented with a shirt at half-time in Saturday's game. Yang's love of Chesterfield began when he started playing with them on a computer game. He now watches the real team week in, week out on TV back home in Korea. Quite the commitment. Now, after losing both their matches last weekend, the Sheffield Steelers bounced back with a maximum points haul in ice hockey's Elite League this weekend. This 5-2 win over over Coventry at the Arena on Saturday was followed up with a 4-3 win in Dundee yesterday. OK, in other sports news this weekend, former Leeds Rhinos captain Kevin Sinfield, here we go, completed his latest challenge, raising money for motor neurone disease charities. Kevin and his team raised over £1 million after running 230 miles in total over 7 days in different parts of the UK. Leeds' Olympic cycling champion Katie Marchant suffered a broken forearm and 2 dislocated fingers after crashing over the barrier at the London Velodrome on Saturday. British Cycling said yesterday that Katie thankfully is in fine spirits and recovering well. Sheffield's Joe Root is one of 6 shortlisted for the BBC Sports Personality of the Year. Root once again played a hero's innings over the weekend, reaching his century with this audacious scoop for 4 as England won the second test in New Zealand, completing a series win. And Doncaster dart sensation Beau Greaves made it 3 WDF World Championship titles in a row, checking out with this bullseye in a 4-1 win over Sophie McKinley in the final at Lakeside. And finally from me, Bradford City legend Dean Windass has teamed up with West Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service to help raise £56,000 for the Bradford Burns Unit. Next May will mark 40 years since the Bradford City Stadium fire, where 56 football fans lost their lives and many more were injured. Now, Dean spent the morning high above Valley Parade filming a promotional video.
I remember looking at the scenes on the TV, and then obviously the disaster was just incredible. So for me to come down here, to be asked to come down here today, to raise awareness, to try to raise as much money as we can for the 56 that passed away. If we can raise a little bit more, then brilliantly.
Yeah, quite the cause that. That's the sport.
Thank you.
You're
that was a
welcome.
busy one for you, wasn't it?
Very busy, wasn't it? Especially with this voice.
I know, get a bit husky
struggling.
there.
Yeah, go and have
Tell you what, that Katie Marchant crash was pretty horrific, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Thankfully, though, she's well, isn't she?
Yeah.
So
that's
pass on all our
news.
best, Katie. Yeah.
Exactly.
Definitely. Now then, I wonder, do you have any old video games gathering dust up in the attic? Well, now might be a good time to check on your collection, as it could be worth a small fortune.
The rise of the retro gaming market has seen some classic titles from the 1980s and 90s sell for, get this, several £1,000s.
In fact, some Super Mario games have fetched over £1 million at auction. £1 million, making them the most expensive games ever sold.
So what's behind this renewed interest in beloved games from decades gone by? Nick Smith has been finding out.
With their charming pixelated graphics and chirpy sound effects, video games of yesteryear remind us of a simpler, more innocent time. At this retro gaming shop in York, the owner says after more than a decade in the business, the demand for classic games is now enjoying a big resurgence.
I've been in this business for 13 years, and it's definitely generational. You got to think every 15 years something else becomes retro, and then you get people that maybe had that as the first console, then chasing it. From maybe 2010 onwards, it's got more popular every year.
Mint edition copies of some games can be worth staggering amounts. The original Sonic the Hedgehog has fetched up to £350,000 at auction. The Legend of Zelda reached just shy of £750,000. And an edition of Super Mario Bros. Broke the record at £1.6 million. The National Video Game Museum in Sheffield is dedicated to preserving iconic titles which marked significant moments in the industry, like Super Mario 64, one of the first 3D platformers which went on to inspire many others.
So this is one of the key games that I remember as a kid. Now a mint condition copy can sell for up to £1 million. So I guess that shows just how important and valuable the retro gaming market is now becoming.
I think potentially retro games, there's a tangibility to them. There's a sense of ownership that is unfortunately often lost in a lot of current gaming, where everything is digital only, it's streaming. It's interesting to see some of the origin points and some of the key moments of how gaming genres developed, just the different kinds of trends in gaming and what that reflects. Retro gaming can provide an interesting window into history for that.
At this gaming cafe, the owner Mike has been collecting retro titles for 15 years, saying many enthusiasts were born decades after the early consoles were released, showing retro has a wider appeal.
I'd say it's transcending generations now. I am seeing more people coming into the cafe that are younger collectors that are just getting into it. Obviously, I guess we're finding like a new audience for retro collectors. With the older games, you tend to find that they're also a lot harder to play. They still had this attitude that you had back in the arcade days, where it was you were not going to finish this in one go until you get really, really good at it. And I think with the more restrictions they had on the graphics and the memory and stuff, they had to find more interesting ways to tell the story as well.
Far from just a nostalgia trip, retro games offer a window into the birth of global cultural phenomenons, which is why those with a passion for pixels view some of them as almost priceless. Nick Smith, ITV News.
Wow, were you a gamer?
No, I wasn't, no. But maybe I should have been.
Maybe. Finally, you might associate a visit to church with Sunday worship or maybe a carol concert at this time of year, but at St Peter's in Shipley in West Yorkshire, they're replacing baptisms with body slams.
Yes, well, Katie Oscroft thought she'd like to find out a bit more, so she's been along.
Introducing first! That's not the sermon you can hear coming from St Peter's.
Wrestling is all about the story of good and bad.
But that is the Reverend, not on the altar tonight, but in the ring. This is pro wrestling getting ready to rumble for this congregation in Shipley.
I thought, well, why not? Let's give it a go. It's a bit different, so you've got your quirkiness, but also it does attract people. Yeah! It is a new way in which we can try and reach people and tell stories about God.
Most of the wrestlers aren't Christian, most of the people who come to the events aren't Christian, but that's what's so cool about it, is that this is people coming into church who normally would not come into church. How are we helping people turn their lives around? We've got to do something different.
And this is Pete being different.
I'm the berserker, Joel Corbett.
When you think about going to church, you think about cold pews, you think about, the vicar droning on, and it just brings a different dynamic and it brings a different audience to people who would never actually think, oh, I'm going to go into church. There's a lot of conflict in the Bible and we can depict that with action in the ring.
So you say a prayer, then you throw your opponent out the ring.
And then ask for forgiveness afterwards.
Pete, or was it Joel Cobra, was keen to get me into the spirit.
Oh.
I'll probably forgive him for this in time.
Is that being gentle with me?
That's me being gentle.
Someone else taking a leap of faith is Katie the referee.
You wouldn't think it now, but when it's score time, it is locked in focus and they are not messing with me. They are following my rules whether they like it or not. If I see it and it's not right, it's not happening in my ring.
You know they're all bigger than you.
Doesn't matter.
When you say heavy.
And don't mess with Leonie either.
Do you enjoy hurting people?
Depends on the person. Sometimes I feel bad, sometimes I'm like, oh no, it's fine, they deserve it.
Pity the deserving causes on the front row because all the wrestlers are singing from the same hymn sheet, like Liam from Sheffield.
It's one of my my bucket list things to do as a wrestler, like definitely wrestling in church, because I think it's something that you don't often really get to do.
So having the chance to do this is just fantastic.
And you can get away with wearing lycra as well.
Yes, if you wear this normally, you do kind of get a bit of funny looks down the street.
Anything goes here, but when the final smackdown comes in front of an adoring crowd, it feels like worship in this church in Shipley will never be the same again. Katie Oscroft, ITV News.
Wow.
Fantastic.
What do you make of that?
I've seen Katie in a new light. Now then, here's Joe with the weather.
Today's forecast: seafood and sugar cube towns. TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. Some much needed drier weather to come across the whole of the UK over the next few days. And for us in the north, it's allowing just some of that ground to absorb the rainfall we've seen in recent days. A chilly breeze to contend with as we approach the next couple of days or so, with fog patches to come by night and a few areas where we'll see some frost as well in coming nights. But this is the high pressure across the UK at the moment, keeping fronts at bay and allowing us some much needed drier weather with a few glimmers of brightness, but a fair amount of cloud around, it has to be said. Back to this evening, any showers will die away. We still have that driving northeasterly breeze. It'll feel chilly out there today, tonight and tomorrow. 1 or 2 breaks for North Yorkshire, the Dales, allowing temperatures to dip away to around 2 or 3 degrees. But for most places tonight, there's a blanket of clouds, so it won't be freezing. No frost to wake up to tomorrow morning. Should be largely dry to start the day tomorrow, and the sun will be up at 8:13, setting at 3:45 tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow's details then, a cloudy start for most of us, still that nagging northeasterly, so always feeling quite cold. For North Sea coasts tomorrow, cloud will break up, affording a few bright or sunny spells through the course of the day. And into the afternoon, it should stay dry and bright and fine. And temperatures across Yorkshire will steadily climb to 6 or 7 Celsius, but it could feel a couple of degrees colder thanks to the nature of that northeasterly wind. Tomorrow night, under clear skies, we could see a few fog patches forming once more. But with high pressure in charge over the next few days, it's a generally dry outlook. Some chilly nights ahead and plenty of cloud in the forecast in the run-up to the weekend. Bye-bye.
TUI sponsors ITV Yorkshire Weather.
Can't stop thinking about that wrestling ring.
I know. Do you fancy a quick wrestle?
What, when we leave the studio?
Yeah.
Yeah, come
Should we
on
find
then.
Katie and have a tag match? Why not? That's
Thanks
it for now.
watching.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.